All right, welcome to the call. Zoom, call, Zoom, whatever it is. Hope everybody had a great holiday and Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever it is you celebrate. Hope you had a great time with your family and loved ones and are just excited. What a great time of year. Coming up on 2020, getting clear vision, right? Having a clear vision for 2020. And I'm the thoughts that I have for myself this morning, just to kind of think out loud to you guys, I'm in the groove right now. Like my, what Tony Robbins calls, uh, um, not routine, your, what's the word he uses? Rituals. Like I'm in the groove with my rituals. Like I've been doing it. I've been really committed to it. And like he says in one of the audios I've been listening to over and over, you can kind of tell what I'm listening to when I'm quoting people. You'll hear me quote people. That's the thing that I'm listening to over and over personally in my life right now. But and there's a lot, there's a few different things here and there. But right now, leadership and self-deception, and the other book, the anatomy one, are the two that I'm really listening to over and over. And then Tony Robbins, the anatomy of peace. So it's the follow-up to leadership and self-deception. And then the YouTube, Tony Robbins. And these rituals that he talks about. And he says, when you do your rituals, at first it's kind of forced. Maybe you might be excited in the beginning, but it gets to a point where you've got to force yourself to do it willpower wise, because the excitement kind of wears off. And you kind of forget while you're doing it, and your habits want to take over, and that's not become a habit yet. Well, rituals and those fundamental rituals in the morning have pretty much become a habit for me, but the intensity and the focus that I put into them, that habit has to be guarded daily. Like I talked about before in some of the calls that I've done, some trainings that I've done, like I squeegee the shower. Carrie and I squeegee the shower every time we get out. And we've been living here for over 10 years. I still squeegee the shower every morning. It has not become a permanent, definite habit. It's like, I don't want to squeegee the shower some days, but I'm disciplined. I've disciplined myself in the commitment around that. And I framed up why it needs to be done. So there's very few days, I could probably count on both hands how many times I've not squeegeed the shower in over 10 years, right? So that's incredible discipline, because nobody knows if I do it. Nobody's checking up on whether I do it or not. And, it doesn't make a difference if I don't do it that one day. So, what could I start to talk so it really is an incredible discipline. If you squeegee your shower and you don't miss, that's an incredible discipline, because you don't want to do it every day, but you still do it. It's not a habit that you just automatically do. Like some people bite their fingernails. That's a habit. They don't even have to think about it, and they just bite their fingernails. I have to think about squeegee in the shower still, because I don't really want to do it. So again, if you do things like that, that's an incredible discipline. And I changed a word on my 3x5 cards this morning, which I do digitally now. I just love it. I didn't ever think I'd get there, but I do. I still use the cards as well, the 3x5s, but I really like doing it up between my iPad and my phone with the apps that they have now. And I changed one word, and it went from, with the goal that I have, I'm so happy and grateful and blessed to have two maxed out centers, is the way I frame up this card. And then there's some pictures to go with it. And I said, as my personal, I also put this a couple of weeks ago as my personal development barometer, right? So my success is synonymous with my personal development. How disciplined am I with my mental faculties? The science of getting rich, there's a science behind it. And so that's a personal development thing. Some of you have seen the little graph. In fact, let me show it, because it totally goes along with what we're doing on this Zoom with the science of getting rich. This is one of the results of disciplining the mental faculties. Let me see if I can find this here. The law right here. So this right here, the personal development barometer, and then our actual physical goals. Let me make sure you guys, am I sharing my screen? I'm not sharing my screen. Okay, thanks. Melissa, there we go. I've been known to do that. Talk for 5 minutes and I haven't been sharing my screen. Personal development barometer right here. So most people just are focused on their physical actions. So there's a quote, I'm going to paraphrase it. A dream without work is just a wish. Work without a dream is a nightmare. All right, so I'm paraphrasing that loosely, but we'll bring that back around. So the work down here without a vision that I'm holding proactively in my mind, that's up here. The vision and my ability to hold that dream in my mind in a certain scientific way is this line up here. And it's the spiritual side. It's all in the images and ideas that we hold in our head. That's this line. And this whole personal development, there's dynamics around there, why I would do that, why it's important for me to pay attention to how I'm thinking and what I'm thinking about, where most people are just getting into the physical actions of their goals. And so we could say a goal actions down here without a dream in a certain scientific way is just a wish. It ain't going to happen. Now you might ignorantly do that or unknowingly know how you're doing that and it lines up, but you could fall out of that just as quickly doing both of these if you don't really understand the principles behind it. But in most cases, most people don't accidentally fall into success. So it ain't going to happen if you don't have a certain scientific dream framed up in your mind while you're doing the physical actions. And then also having a dream without the physical actions isn't going to work either. You have to get into action. But the way I frame that up is a dream with actions. I don't even remember how I said it now. A dream without actions is just a wish. So a dream without action, so just laying around kind of thinking about it, wishing that something would be different about your life without action it's just a wish. And then actions without a dream in a certain scientific way is a nightmare because you're going to be working hard but not getting to your goal. So if I'm right here in my certain scientific way of framing up my dream, and it's going to be a match in the physical world. It's always a perfect match, but it falls short. So I want to be at a 10 in my physical, world, in my environment, my circumstances. I want to be here. That's the dream life. And I come up against challenges that now start to make me go wonky mentally. I don't know how to think in a certain scientific way when a level 4 and level 5 challenge comes up. When the environment is suggesting something to me right here, I go wonky because I only know how to hold the dream in a certain scientific way at a level 3. Give me a level 4 problem, and I don't know how to frame up that dream on a mental image level that produces feelings. And so I'm not going to reach that goal that I have to get to a 10 because I don't know how to maintain in a certain scientific way my mental discipline, which is only in the spiritual world, only in the spiritual world. That's the only place it can take place. So then people, they try to develop their skills better. They go and watch people who have a better skill and are a representation of a better skill down here. And they try to learn the physical skill and they neglect this up here. So what we want to do is learn a certain scientific way mentally to discipline our mind up here. This is a discipline, but you can't get this discipline if you don't know what to discipline it around. But once you do, then what happens is the physical world mirror reflects it now. But you did it here first. So what I changed on my card was I changed it from personal development to I'm so happy and grateful and blessed to have 2 maxed out centers as my personal discipline barometer. Because what I'm doing right now that puts me in this momentum, these, like Tony Robbins is talking about with the rituals that we do, what's putting me into momentum is my discipline in the way that I'm framing things up every morning. And he says, once you build the momentum around that concept of yourself, it creates a momentum that carries you through the rest of the day, because there's a mental attitude that I have because of me framing up the concept of myself mentally every morning. And I'm just in the groove right now. Like, I am so excited for 2020 because I've been working on this visualization of it's going to be the happiest year ever. Well, what creates happiness? Progress. Where's that progress going to take place? With me personally, it's going to be with my wellness, you know, the nutrition I'm going to put in my body and the bad things I'm going to keep out of my body, and also my fitness level. That's number one. So I'm going to progress in my ability to do that. And then number two is my best business ever for the year. I'm not talking about becoming number one in the company in comparison to everybody else. I'm talking about my personal best in both of those. Going for my personal best. Who's my competition? Me. Not, you know, trying to beat somebody else or be as good or better than somebody else in the company. Going for my personal best. And number three is 1 million blenders going off in my organization. My 2 maxed out centers, 1 million blenders going off every morning, and what that represents. So with those 3 categories, I'm going to create progress in my life and then facilitate that progress in my team's life and in other people's lives. So that's going to create happiness for me. And it hasn't worn off in 14 years. And I'm not burnt out because I'm doing it in a very simple but profound way. Okay, so having the rituals around that every morning and framing that up coming into 2020, I'm lit up. I'm really super excited. And I have let's see if I can share this one on the screen. Yeah, so let me share this. This is one of my 3x5 cards. I gotta pull up my iPad. You know, so now I'm a little vulnerable because my vision's on here, but there's nothing to. Okay, so what I framed up here is just reminding myself who I am as a child of God and all of the potential that lies within me. So, but this right here, this is God's handiwork, right? The universe. And it's blueprinted. It's his handiwork, you know. Nature shows us the true imagination and capacity of that imagination and what we can come up with and what we can frame up with. And God being the ultimate, this is the representation of the ultimate. And I put on here, you know, this is the greater capacity that lies within me that I'm working towards developing. So again, we're just preschoolers right now in learning how to frame up our own universe. How's my universe looking? How's my world looking? That's my universe. That's my canvas that God has given me. And he's given me the paint, the brush, and provided the canvas and all of the tools to go ahead and make something of that canvas. Well, this canvas right here, regardless of what the economy is and how people feel, God holds his objective. He's holding this pattern regardless of what's going on in the physical world. So environment, there are things going on that could cause you. So what I wrote, and I just added this morning, I had the greater capacity in this picture. I just added these 2 things to my 3x5 card this morning. So faith is holding my objective in my eyes unshaken. So God doesn't let what other people think and what's going on in other people's circumstances in their personal world, he doesn't let that shake his faith in his objective. The universe still spins on its axis. He's not letting the environment and other people's, you know, beliefs or lack of belief in what they're doing shake him. Right? So regardless of what the economy is or how people feel, how am I holding my faith on my objective? And I realized, oh, it's not personal development at this point for me. I've got the principles down. I can teach those. It's discipline. And what I've done is I've become more disciplined to my rituals and the clarity of my vision. That's a discipline. The clarity of my vision is a discipline. And I've disciplined myself at a higher level of excellence over the last however many weeks that I've been doing it. And I'm just lit up about it. So I just want to get that across, that once you start learning these, it just comes down to discipline. Squeegeeing the shower is a discipline. I mean, it's a discipline. I don't know how else to explain it. It's not a matter of me needing to grow more personally. Does that make sense? I think that's the distinguished fact that I'm trying to make here. It's, you know, I don't need to get ready to start doing my 3x5 cards. I need to just put in the work. I need to discipline myself at that level of excellence like an athlete would. A professional athlete, they don't need to go out and learn the fundamentals of being that athlete. It comes down to discipline. Michael Jordan, he said it right to Tony Robbins backstage. There are very few people that would discipline their life around the fundamentals that I've disciplined myself. So hopefully that's hitting you in a different way. It's not about you needing to personally develop more and learn something more in a lot of cases. It's your discipline. If you're not doing it, it's your lack of discipline. If I'm not doing it, it's my lack of discipline. All right? There we go. So I think that's a good place to start. Because what you're seeing there is the practical application of the science of getting rich. That certain and scientific way of doing things, it really comes down to a discipline. And Charles Haanel said it in his book. What you're going to undertake to do here takes more discipline than running a country. It's easier to run a country than to discipline your mind, because the environment and your senses are going to suggest things to you, and you've come up with an image in a spiritual way in your mind, and you got to hold that spiritual image in your mind while you're walking around in a physical world that might be suggesting the exact opposite. All right, so I want to finish from the second chapter. I don't remember if we finished the whole chapter, but I want to finish with the last couple sentences here. He says, you may be the poorest man on the continent and deeply in debt. You may have neither friends, influences, nor resources. So here's that environment that's going to suggest things to you. The circumstances are in your face all day long. The bills and all of this stuff is in your face all day long, suggesting certain things to you, suggesting ideas and images to you. And it's not even suggesting, it's telling you what the images are. There's the notice that says overdue, bill. And when I learned this, and I had bills that were overdue or whatever, you just learn to put those in the drawer and out of sight, out of mind. Do what you can about it. If you can't do anything about it, then get it out of your visual, get it out of your visual. Hide it somewhere, because you have 3x5 cards that you're wanting to suggest something else. So you don't want to be creating the battle. Just put it in a drawer and forget about it until you can do something about it. So you may be the poorest man on the continent and be deeply in debt. You may have neither friends, influence, nor resources. But if you begin to do things in this way, you must infallibly begin to get rich, for like causes must produce like effects. So what he's saying here is, if we take these circumstances and we reverse engineer them to images and ideas that you have in your psyche, and let's just place ourselves right here. Let's just call this a certain vibration, the law of vibration. Images, ideas, and thoughts produce vibrations. And let's also bring a magnet into this. real quick. We'll just color that magnet in. The reason, and I like taking the time, even though it's not my best drawing, images produce vibrations, and it helps us understand things in a greater way, in more depth. So this right here, this magnet is representing, so he says, you may be the poorest person on the continent and deeply in debt. You may have neither friends, influence, nor resources, but fear not. Those circumstances you've attracted into your life, you've attracted them like a magnet. So when you start to think of this new concept of yourself, which is up here, so we're working to get to a higher plane where we have less challenges in our life and more of the favorable things. The more you move up those lines, the more enjoyable your life is. So the only thing you did to create the circumstances is created a certain vibration. The law of attraction brought everything to you. So in like manner, you don't have to figure out how all of these circumstances are going to change. Being the poorest person on the continent, being deeply in debt, having neither friends nor influences nor resources. That's all been the circumstances that you're in and the lack of those have come through like a magnet because of the images you're holding, images and ideas that you're holding. And he says, fear not, because we can turn all of that around. You don't have to figure how that's going to happen. The law of attraction is going to do it for you, and it's going to attract those things to you. You just do what you can do, and that is discipline your mind in a certain scientific way around the concept. So here's the key. It's the concept of yourself. So holding that concept of yourself in a certain scientific way enacts powers that you know nothing about. These powers right here. You'll get to see the results of those as you do this. So, but in this fallibly begin to get rich. Why? Because you're at a higher vibration on a spiritual level with the concept of yourself, which automatically this says like attracts like. So you start to attract the circumstances around that new concept of yourself. And that's how it works. I'm not going to argue with you and your subconscious on whether you believe that's how it works or not, or you understand. I don't even totally know how it works, understand how that works. But I could see the correlations between what I do make a huge difference. And what I do now is absolutely different than what I used to do right here. What I do now is, and that is changing the concept of myself and holding it there with an eye of faith, right? So, let's see. So holding it there, faith is holding my objective, the new concept of myself, unshaken. Regardless of what's going on in the world around me, in my world, my inner world, totally different than what's going on in the world around me. Especially, it's totally different if I am going for a new concept of myself. My environment is different because I was down here before. This is the new concept. All right, so, but if you begin to do things in this way, you must infallibly begin to get rich, for like causes must produce effects. Now, you won't get rich if the concept of yourself has nothing to do with generating income. This is why Bob Proctor wrote the book, You Were Born Rich. Not financially born rich. You were born rich with all of the innate capacities for limitless possibilities. The only way you're going to become rich is if you're framing up that new concept of yourself around an entrepreneur who is thriving in their business venture. So if you're framing up the concept of yourself as an Isagenix 6-figure, 7-figure income earner, and you do this, yeah, infallibly you'll get rich because you're going to attract like circumstances. All the right people will start joining your business where they weren't before. And they will be different people than the people that are in your business now. Those are the people that are resonating down here. Doesn't mean they'll leave. It just means that they'll continue to offer up 10%, where somebody else who's going to offer up 60% will show up here. Their commitment level, their skill level will be higher than those that you've attracted here. All right, so the only way you'll become rich financially is if you frame up the concept of yourself becoming rich. That's why the first chapter in this book is so important. It's allowing you to do that. Where before you looked at going after wealth and riches as being evil, now you realize, oh wait, no, everything that I want is going to require that I become wealthy. And it's my right to become wealthy. In fact, God set up everything so that I do become wealthy because there's a law of abundance. There's not a law of lack. God is the law of abundance, not the law of lack and not enough. So that first chapter is so important for you to embrace, to be able to write up the new concept of yourself as an Isagenix millionaire. Do you get that? And if you were resisting wealth where you shouldn't be now, you should be embracing, even if it's just a hope that you have, you're going to challenge your former beliefs and paradigms around money. And that first chapter makes sense to you. Like there's some common sense to what he's saying. And so now it's going to allow us to take that paradigm that we had around money, flip it, and start to create a concept of ourselves as being wealthy, as an Isagenix associate, as an Isagenix entrepreneur. Do you see where the correlation comes in now? If you don't do that, then good luck. You will continue to remain down here on a 3 because you didn't embrace the principle of abundance. The principle of abundance is up here in the upper end of the scale when it comes to you working your Isagenix business. Do you guys see that? Can I get some heads shaking and nodding in agreement? Yeah, you have to understand the principle of abundance in that first chapter in order to be able to frame up for yourself a concept of generating success in your Isagenix business. It's wealth. And if you hang on to the old concept but try to take on the new, the wine bottles, the old wine bottles aren't going to hold it. They're going to burst. Something's going to give. You are not going to be able to put the new wine, which is your wish that you want, your desire, into that old bottle or that old concept of wealth and riches. That's why he started with the first chapter, to try to get the foundation right. We got to prepare the soil. If you're going to start creating a new concept that's opposite of being the poorest person on the continent, who's always in debt and doesn't have any influence, because who's going to want to follow somebody who's in debt and struggling in their life? So he had to prepare the soil first. So you may want to go back now and reread the first chapter and embrace it with a little bit more veracity and vitality, and really deeply seed that seed. Now the scriptures are starting to make a little more sense, right? Can't put new wine into old bottles. You can't be leaving the city that's about to be destroyed and look back. You'll turn into a pillar of salt. You'll preserve that old city and its ways. Why would you want to, preserve the old ways that are destructive? And it's also why the person who has will be given more, and the person who has not will continue to have that which they desire taken away. I mean, the scriptures really open up for you here when you start to understand these principles. And people say, well, the movie The Secret, it's taking God out of it and it's blasphemy. No, they were just taught erroneously and embraced erroneous ideas from ignorant people. If heaven's going to come to earth, we need to be moving up this scale in every area. Right? So if you are in the wrong business, you can get into the right business. Well, if you knew what the right business was, you would have went and gotten into it. So you don't know who the right people are and how you're going to attract them. You've already attracted Isagenix because of a certain desire that you have. Now, whether you rock that Isagenix business or not is going to depend on other factors. Like, how do you feel about getting wealthy? How do you feel about being super rich? How do you feel about other people thinking about you getting super rich, right? So you attracted Isagenix to you, but what you do with that is going to depend on these other dynamics in your personal development, in your personal discipline. So for like causes must produce like effects. If you have no capital, you can get capital. If you are in the wrong business, you can get into the right business. If you're not attracting the right people, I have people who don't like the products. They don't like how they taste, or they're always telling me these are the wrong ingredients. These ingredients my doctor don't approve of these ingredients. Well, you attracted the right business, but you haven't attracted the right people. So you've got to frame up. Remember, I said that we're going to show how to take the science of getting rich and specifically applying it to your Isagenix business. So how are you going to frame up the concept of yourself with your 3x5 cards around your Isagenix business? This should be giving you some insight. Okay, yeah, I want to make an impact in the world, but are you being specific with that? Well, an impact means that you would be making, let's say this is the vibration of $2,000 a week. Is that framed up on your 3x5 card, and have you embraced it? Or has your old paradigm, your old wine bottles, been negating that $2,000 a week? Or have you not even been able to write it out because you didn't feel good and worthy about writing it out? So that $2,000 a week has to absolutely be a main focus and a target on your 3x5 card, with you wanting to make an impact with these products in people's lives. Well, I feel good about making an impact in people's lives, but I don't feel good about making $2,000 a week. Well, that's a contradiction in and of itself. Because if you're going to make an impact in people's lives, then you're playing really small if you're not expecting to make $2,000 a week. You might make an impact in somebody's life here, but then all of a sudden they stop ordering the products because you forgot this part. You have to proactively put this in there and discipline yourself proactively throughout the day about this $2,000 a week while you're making the impact. Because you could go about doing the actions and not negating them with doubt and fear, but there's something else that's distracting your mind about what you're wanting to attract. And you haven't got the paradigm that is automatically attracting $2,000 when you're not thinking about what you're thinking about. So you have to be proactively putting this in there. If you've got a paradigm, old wine bottles, that has a problem with being wealthy, I would absolutely bet 100% that you're not proactively holding $2,000 in the forefront of your mind a week and feeling good about it proactively, and creating momentum around that. While you're doing the physical actions down here, while you're doing the physical actions and making your calls, you have to proactively insert the $2,000 a week into your 3x5 card, or 10,000 a week, or how would 27,000 a week be, right? Got to proactively hold that in there, because if you're not proactively doing it, trust me, you're not subconsciously doing it, and you're not casually doing it. And that's why it takes work. This is absolutely what Charles Howell's talking about. That takes awareness of what you're thinking about. And when you're not, Lenny asked me, how often do you do it? I said, well, it'd probably be easier to ask me when I'm not doing that. Because when I'm not doing it, I just remember to get back to doing it because I've identified I'm not doing it. That's what it takes. Because the moment I let off my focus and I stop guarding it with my life is the moment my mind goes back to this. When I'm on cruise control, when I don't think I'm negating it, my mind is going back to here when it comes to whatever money I think I'm capable of earning. I have to force it in there. That new concept of myself has to be, I have to be ever vigilant. I called it the guardian at the gate of your mind has to be ever vigilant. Who's standing watch at the gate of your mind and the thoughts that are going through it? And this is where I would listen to The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. He quotes a psychologist in there that says 98% of people would rather do anything than this. They would rather do anything than what this is, what I'm suggesting right here. Because it takes effort and people are mentally lazy. They don't have the discipline. Even if they know they need to do it, how many people know they need to be eating healthier and yet they don't have the discipline to eat healthier? That's why I changed it on my 3x5 card to discipline, from personal development to discipline. Maybe that might be a good idea for some of you as well. You don't need more personal development, you need better discipline. Because the 98%, they lack the discipline to do the fundamentals. Man, and that's just a choice? You mean to tell me I could have my dream life if I just discipline myself with the fundamentals? Absolutely. Michael Jordan told Tony Robbins, look, I'm not trying to be humble when I say it. I'm just disciplined with the fundamentals. And I'm disciplined at a level that most people wouldn't do it. So the 98%, let's break that down a little bit more. 95% would rather do anything than this. 3% think they are doing it. 2% are nailing it. That's why I call it a 2%er deal. 3% think they're doing it. 95% don't want to do it. You know, the options have been presented to them and they're just like, no. I'd rather watch TV. I'd rather listen to my music. I'd rather do my hobbies that cost me money and put me further in debt. Okay, so it makes sense? So he's saying here, it doesn't matter if you don't have any of the things that you want in your dreams. If you have no capital, you can get capital. If you are in the wrong business, you can get into the right business. If you are in the wrong location, you could go to the right location. And you can do so by beginning in your present business and in your present location to do things in the certain way which causes success. It doesn't matter how poor you are. It doesn't matter your gender. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter your ethnicity. It doesn't matter your faith. Religiously speaking, what matters is what's going on spiritually in your head. What are the images? What are the ideas that you're holding? Most people don't know because the environment just suggests to them. They haven't even developed the discipline to know what they think about. It's just being suggested to them all day long by their employer, by their boss, by the news. So they don't even know. But you can begin to do that. It doesn't cost you anything. In The Strangest Secret, he says, isn't that amazing that the most powerful things in our life don't cost a dime? Showing love, receiving love doesn't cost a dime. You controlling your thoughts in a certain scientific way doesn't cost a dime. You can begin at once to do it. Doesn't matter if you're just graduated from Yale or just got out of jail. You can do it. Doesn't cost a dime. Nobody's negated it. I mean, that's why the rain and the sun falls on everybody. That's why Bob Proctor decided on the title, You Were Born Rich. Because from that place where anybody can do this, what's the concept they hold of themselves? You could be a bum on a park bench, just like Joe Vitale. Joe Vitale, a bum on a park bench. all of a sudden started creating a new concept of himself, and the magnet started to attract the like attracts like. He disciplined himself as a bum, homeless on a park bench. He disciplined his mental faculties to hold the new concept of himself in a certain way. And God's modus operandi started to bring everything to him. Ideas, people, circumstances, and scenarios. Don't go into how you're going to do this, right? We haven't really gotten into, okay, I'm framing up the 3x5 cards now. I'm giving myself permission to embrace $2,000 a week, $5,000 a week, $500 a week, whatever that is for you. I've given myself permission to do that. Now, how do I hold that? How do I, in a certain way, what am I doing? What's the processes there? What's the fundamentals there? We haven't really gotten into that yet. He's calling it a certain way. I've explained a little bit of it here, but we haven't really gotten there yet. All right, so what time are we at? 8:42. I'm going to open this up for a share and get some thoughts so we can mastermind and maybe take some of these concepts a little bit deeper. So I'm going to unmute it, and then I'll mute it back out and make it so that you can unmute yourself. Right now, you can't unmute yourself, so.
Doesn't matter how old they are, they're so much fun.
Okay. All right. Anybody have anything they want to add, ask, bring up?
Melissa. Me? Can you hear me? I just really appreciate that. I think I have that mental block as far as how much money I can make, and so I'm really working on that this last few weeks, and it keeps coming back to me. Not only Jimmy Smith, who started later, but I'm at a place where people are retiring around me, and they are talking about their limits on their income. Okay, well, I got this, I got that. That should be enough. And I come home, Mark and I talk about that. I don't want to live with enough. God's abundance is bigger than enough. And so that's kind of what's happening in my world. So just redoing that and making those goals, and starting with 100 blenders a month would be great, So that's kind of going on. And then I know in this book, also The Secret of Getting Rich, I was thinking about,
well, hold on right there for just a second before you go to, are you going to another point, or are you expanding on that?
Yeah, a totally different thing.
Okay, so let's go to just address that. So I just wrote down Jim, so I didn't forget the train of thought.
Okay.
So discipline, right? Right now, your mind isn't disciplined on its paradigm, where you've already created a pattern that maybe it took some discipline to get where you are. Maybe it didn't. Maybe you just been on cruise control and things have been suggesting to you, and you've agreed and not agreed with certain things, which really didn't take much discipline. You didn't start going to the gym yet, right? So you're not working out yet, so to speak, in a gym. You haven't developed that discipline. However, where you're at was framed up, and you allowed yourself to generate, let's say, that discipline without putting forth the energy and effort that it takes. You will operate on the same level here as you are here eventually, but it's going to take discipline now. It's going to take time, energy, and effort to get to this level that you've never implemented in your regimen. It's never been a part of your daily method of operation to discipline yourself to get right here. It's just been agreements. Kind of passively, we get to where we are. So now you do want to get to here. You're going to have to start implementing some discipline that you've never implemented before. So it's the same as somebody who's never been to a gym. Never in their lifetime have they stepped foot in a gym, but they're going to now. And so there's going to be some mental discipline, some willpower that takes place. And that's one of our mental faculties, is the will. So it's going to take a will. to do it. I don't remember which audio that was. It's Bob Proctor. He talks about it. He says, you know, the president of the United States, I think it was John F. Kennedy, asked the scientists, what's it going to take to land on the moon? And the scientist said, the will to do it. So a will is part of our mental faculties, imagination, the will, perception. All right, so it's going to take, and we could just add to that will power. Okay, holding an idea in our minds in a certain way, an idea or an image or a concept of myself. The only way I'm going to get there is by going to the gym. So now it's going to take their willpower to get to the gym because they have a pattern plan already that's created physical habits. It's totally going to take willpower. And this raw, sheer grit. We hear that word, right? And it's going to take discipline above and beyond anything that you've ever expected, you know, that was going to be demanded of you. I love the movie. Go back and watch the 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston, and where he's walking across the desert and you hear the narrator speaking certain words. He's describing what Moses is going through as he's walking across the desert. And you're thinking, okay, the desert should end. Okay, why hasn't the desert ended? He got his point across. It doesn't matter. When you think you've had enough, there's still going to be more that's going to be demanded of you. And that desert just keeps going and going. And the narrator just keeps talking. Right? So when you think you've had enough, too bad. It's going to be demanding more of you, of your willpower and your discipline to stay here on that concept of yourself that is going to be demanded of you. You're going to think you've done enough, you know, way before you've really done enough. But here's the cool thing. While you're doing it, things start to show up in your physical world. It doesn't say, okay, Dave's proven himself now. He's done it long enough. That's just your habits and getting to that place of discipline where now Tiger Woods' swing is pretty much habitual, the way he swings. All right. So what's cool is results do start showing up with the practice of exercising. And all of you who have done this before, you've seen that. You've tasted the successes that come. You just didn't hold out. Or maybe some of you have and you're living that life now. Okay? Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. What was your second thought?
Well, it went back to swimming, which is my parallel here, is that, you know, first the will, you know, thinking I did enough, and I did that in Alcatraz, like my body was telling me I had done enough, and then I looked up and I'm like, no, I didn't do enough. I had to go farther. That was one thing. But also when he talks about the science of getting rich, how, you know, abundance there, and you talked about motocross, how even you felt like the motocross shop showed up when you were going for motocross, because those possessions and what your abundance to accommodate that showed up.
The conversation that I had with the guy at the motocross shop, they sell motorcycles, was a huge piece of me advancing my motocross skills and my enjoyment of it. How could I have ever known, you guys, that I was going to go into a motocross shop and that some guy was going to say the thing that I needed to hear? That was this. And we don't know anything about how that really works. But I know a lot about what I need to do in order for that to show up. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah. So I was going to say that my vibration, my swimming thing's still continuing. And so how I thought, well, you know, these other swimmers have these things and their goals are here. And so these possessions are showing up for them. And I need those possessions too, kind of a thing, kind of a challenge to God, and the thinking, okay, it's still something I'm doing and pursuing. And so I just recently got something that has to do with getting a piece of equipment. And then I was challenged about a longer distance and how you have kayak people that surround you with a kayak that have to travel with you. Well, you know, sure enough, my daughter just gets a kayak and her husband is the kayak guy. So I'm like, so I'm seeing this just come alongside in the same showing up thing of my vibration going up in my physical world, and then being able to, I like what Tony Robbins said and what you shared as far as the how he talks about raising your standard and and I'm working on my cards to write I am and more of the standard that meets the $1,000 a week, the standard that I have to live to equal that in my 3x5 card, because it is those disciplines and that, that willpower and discipline has to be a standard. We always get our standards. There are musts. I did it with swimming because the non-negotiable was getting to the pool today or whatever it is. What's the list of the non-negotiables that are going to get me to the $1,000 a week? What's the standard? So that's all processing.
Exactly. I love when you bring stuff up because it's so practical and applicable. When you were swimming, you could be swimming down here and doing the right actions, but totally doing the wrong actions up here. And that's what most people do, especially with their Isagenix business. They're doing the right actions, even if their skill level, when you're working up here, it so makes up for your lack of skill. I mean, the right things start showing up and you start having success, even though your skills physically, I'll say it this way, kind of suck, right? So this is the fastest way to go from point A to point B in your goals down here. Your skills will catch up as you do repetition. But if you're doing this down here, like I said, you could be doing the right actions. You could even be swimming at this level. Like you're physically pushing yourself like a champion swimmer. But in your mind, you're the loser swimmer. This wins every time over the physical. It wins every time. So your actions, and most people in Isagenix are doing actions up here, but they're doing the mental actions here. Thinking is an action. It's a physical action. It even produces physical chemicals in your brain. And that's the hard part, is when you're thinking of this concept of yourself up here, the cemented image, not cemented, but the paradigm that you have, because we have neuroplasticity, we can change it, but it's creating a chemical reaction in your brain that makes you feel a certain way. That's really the biggest challenge, the biggest hurdle that you have to overcome in staying up here, because those physical chemicals that are being made from this paradigm are negating, they're a negator to this. They make you feel like this while you're doing the actions here. So the paradigm makes you feel a certain way chemically in your brain while you're doing these actions. It's really hard to overcome those chemical feelings that your brain are producing, because this is where you're at mentally, even though you're doing these physical actions with your business. You have to it's like that's the part of Charlton or Moses going across the desert. It's just like, I gotta use the will, and on a spiritual level, it doesn't take any physical willpower to create an image, right? But yet it takes some physical willpower to overcome those chemicals. You got to take that next step when the chemicals in your brain are trying to hold you back from taking that next step. That's really the biggest hurdle, right? So,
so
what you did was you aligned inside mentally with swimming Alcatraz and completing that race. You totally did it. You got there. How do we know that? Because you did it. You completed, you crossed the finish line. That's how we know. Okay.
Oh my,
Yeah.
I have something to share, Dave. This is Kim, and so incredibly powerful, and some coupling on something that I was listening to this morning on the brain is imagining like a dead tree on one side and a live tree on the other side, and the chemicals that we're feeding our brains with the gratitude or as how we're speaking to ourselves is like, is this thought watering my plant or is this thought killing my plant? And that is right alongside with, I've been super disciplined in my mind for a long time, but I always have not been consistent with the income producing activities that match that vision. And so that disconnect is just a simple question. Am I watering it or am I killing it right now? And then not beating yourself up around that thought, just getting into the action of it. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that reminds me of some important things right here. Again, it's still, we're being a little bit redundant, but we're coming at it from different perspectives and going deeper because of that. So that's why I love these mastermind parts. So there's triggers. There are already built-in triggers for you to stay right where you're at in the old wine bottle. There are already built-in triggers, and unfortunately your brain is looking for those and it's recognizing them. It's called the RAS system, the reticular activating system. That's the system that's built into us that keeps us in that safe zone, that keeps us where we're, where we're safe, where we're used to being, and it's kind of a safe place. So it's going to eliminate all of the other things from your awareness and keep in your awareness all of the things that have to do with this right here. So it's your brain's actually working against you when you go here. Now remember, the brain's a tool. It's not who you are. The brain is a tool of your spiritual nature. Okay, your spirit is who you are. It existed before your physical brain existed, and it will exist afterwards. So your brain is working against you. And so those chemicals that are being produced, it's looking for triggers to keep you here and not allow you to go here. And so that's also known as confirmation biases. So not only do you have your brain working against you, you have all of these triggers that are in your environment that are trying to say, see, I told you so, or look, that's why it's the way it is. That's why that doesn't work. And on top of that, it's going to create the chemicals that produce the emotions. You have a lot working against you where you're at, but it's not an impossible thing. It's I'm possible. I am possible, but it's going to take a lot of intestinal fortitude. It's going to take a lot of will. It's going to take a lot of discipline to override the confirmation biases that are already acting as triggers. So how do you overcome that? As an intelligent being, you create new triggers for the new concept of yourself. And that's what the 3x5s really are. They're consistent, constant reminders and triggers of how you should be feeling right now.
Thank you.
How you're going to get there.
Thank you.
How you feel now that you're there. So now we're going to hone in a little bit more on the 3x5 cards on how you frame those up and what is the scientific way of framing up those 3x5 cards so that I'm thinking in a certain scientific way. You're thinking in a way of not how am I going to get from here to there. You're already there right here. The new concept of yourself is an already accomplished fact. You're assuming that it's already been accomplished. All of the how has already been taken care of. You're now enjoying that lifestyle, not how you're going to get there. You already are enjoying it. And we'll go more into that. That's just giving you a little peek into what's coming. But that certain scientific way, it institutes the law of non-resistance. It institutes that principle, the law of non-resistance. All of the things that are going to cause you to resist taking on that new concept of yourself, you throw them out the window. You don't think about them. You learn how to write those out of that new concept of yourself in the 3x5 cards. So when you frame your 3x5 cards up, you're using the law of non-resistance. Your brain is going to want to say, yeah, but how are you going to do that? Or what about this that's popping up? We don't think about those things. That would be resisting doing what you need to be doing in a certain scientific way. A lot of people resist the certain scientific way by allowing their mind and their 3x5 cards to remind them how you're going to do that. You're breaking the law of non-resistance. You're resisting. So we don't write any resistance into the concept of ourself. Trying to figure out how you're going to get there would be writing in and facilitating resistance. And I know you had conversations, Melissa, about swimming that had showed up and different things that had showed up. I think there was even something when you went to buy a swimsuit or something like that. For me, it was I went into the motocross shop and I had a conversation with somebody. There's no way I could have figured out the how. Well, I wasn't trying to figure out the how with motocross. I saw myself on the podium. I placed in motocross when 6-year-olds were beating me. I was still holding the concept. I didn't write in or allow any resistance of that new concept of myself. That's like looking back at the destruction of the city and turning into a pillar of salt. I learned the principle of the law of non-resistance. I learned how to ride out the resistance. Anything you resist, persist. And a lot of times people start doing this, but they're resisting it because they're thinking of the how or these other triggers that show up that are negating that new concept of themselves. So, okay, pretty deep stuff right there. We'll get more into that and showing how to write up a 3x5 card like that. Kind of showed you one of my 3x5 cards already. All right, so, all right, any last thing that has to be shared? Okay, all right, you guys, awesome. Thanks for showing up today. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, you
Thanks,
guys.
Dave.
Thank
Happy
you,
New
Dave.
Year.